All right, well, welcome guys. My name is Nathan. I will be one of your TCI guys for the day, helping out with ideas for distance learning for TCI's middle school science is what we're focusing on today. A lot of the platform is similar. So if you are social studies or K-5 science, there are lots of similarities, but ideally we're gonna aim for middle school science and ideas for using Bring Science Alive Middle School for distance learning. And with me is Kelsey. Do you wanna introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Kelsey Moore, former teacher, and have been with TCI for a couple years now. TCI was something that was life-changing for me as a teacher. So I am just really glad to be able to be here with Nathan today to share and help you as we're in this just totally different world of teaching, right? And be here to support you as best we can. So I'm really excited for that today.
And then Sarah is also here. Sarah, just want to say hi.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sarah Kumar, Product Marketing Manager at TCI. Really excited to have you all join us for the webinar today.
So all three of us are going to help with both sharing information and then also answering questions. There's a good number of participants today, so just be patient with us, but we'll definitely get to all your questions at some point. And so let me close poll and just show it real quick. So most of you guys are integrated or a combination of life, physical, and earth science, which is what we're seeing a lot around both California and the rest of the country nowadays, is that a lot of it is integrated. So right now on the screen, you are seeing one of our modular programs, WAVES, which could be used in either physical science or it could also be used in an integrated combination. A lot of states and districts do it at 8th grade, but there are some other places that you might see it taught. And like Kelsey was saying, we definitely wanted to say thank you for being here and thank you for doing distance learning and trying distance learning. If you look at the screen, obviously there's maybe that top left one's a little rough to do right now, distance-wise. So there's gonna be some hands-on elements, obviously, and some labs and some experiments that you're not gonna be able to perfectly replicate, and you have to kind of be okay with that. And that's, our job is to do our best now to be able to meet students. And I think we're all gonna pick up a lot of cool techniques and tips that are gonna help us when we go back in the fall and we get to really have good blended learning. So we're hoping that we can kind of take the best of TCI, show you tips on how to use it, but just you got to give yourself a little bit of patience and grace and make sure that you don't kill yourself as you're trying to roll out distance learning to your students. Couple of housekeeping things. If you can try on the webinar, we do have a mute and unmute button. So if you have background noise, like we've already, we will have everybody muted. So what we will typically use is the chat and the Q&A. So I want you guys to all practice that now. So practice finding those two items. In the chat, that's what we're going to use to share responses. So if it's just like I ask a question and you have everybody sends out responses, then chat's the best way to do that. So that's not necessarily something that you want an answer to. It's just, okay, he asked a question and I'll share responses. So chat's kind of like free for all. The other option is the Q&A. And the Q&A is really more of like I have a question that I need answered. So I want to make sure that either Nathan or Kelsey or Sarah is able to answer the question. Then please do put that in Q&A just so we don't miss it, because chat will get very full. And so it could be a little bit tough to do it. And one question, Deborah, if you are still here, I did see that you're doing geography. So yeah, this really is more middle school social studies, but I would say, Kelsey, doesn't everything I think apply to geography? Because geography has the same layout with the slides that middle school science
Totally.
does. So I think geography,
even though
Deborah,
it's middle school. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Deborah, you're totally fine, actually. All the examples are going to be science, but you should be totally fine with geography or to use geography. Also, probably high school social studies is similar.
Totally.
All right. So there are a couple questions. So good job, guys, who've already found the Q&A. And then I want to have everybody practice using the chat right now. Quick icebreaker is just what's something good? So what's one positive so far that you've experienced with distance learning? So anything that you've come up with or solution that you found or something from your students, something positive that you've experienced with distance learning, and throw that in the chat is something that's positive. We'll give you about 20, 30 seconds. Cheryl, that's awesome. Yes, no one cares what I'm wearing. Actually, I told Kelsey that right before. I was like, oh, I got to put a real shirt on. Got to be a human being. And Midge, that's interesting about more time for professional development. I am hoping there's a lot of positives that come out of this.
Yeah, and I love the like making individual comments on student work. I've seen that as I work with teachers, like there is just a lot of this individualized specific feedback, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. And there are just so many, different tools that you guys are posting, whether it's Screencastify or Screencast-O-Matic. Like, I think that's nice to actually like force us to learn these new digital platforms and try out new ones. I mean, there's probably other ones that you haven't tried before that you get to use. So it's definitely not the same. Like we definitely all are missing our kids for sure. Jill, I totally agree. So it's like missing that interaction, missing the kids in the interaction. But hopefully we'll get, on the other side of this and we'll have a lot of new tools in our belt that we can use. All right. Thank you guys very much for throwing those in the chat. So again, we'll keep using the chat like this. So like just anytime you're just kind of giving feedback or giving ideas or sharing with each other, that works. But then make sure if you have a question about how do I use something or how do I find something, put that in the Q&A so that Kelsey and Sarah and I will get it. All right. So our agenda for today, we'll first look at a quick overview of kind of TCI resources. There's a website that I want to make sure that you've seen, and then the top 5 ways to use TCI at home. So I'll look at that part. Those are things that, again, apply to every single TCI program. So it's going to be like things that work for everybody. Kelsey will look at assignments. So how do you assign the things that I'll just show you how to use. And we'll look at some settings that you may or may not have played around with in your TCI subscriptions. And then the two at the bottom are really important, especially for middle school science, is how do you share the slides? Those have like the lesson guide slides with the investigations. So how do you share those with students and answer questions that you have about that? And then what are some good investigations for distance learning? So we've tried to build in tips for distance learning inside the TCI subscription, and we're continuing to build that out. So that's the initial agenda that we're going to run through. If there is something else that you definitely want to have covered, again, please put that in Q&A so that we know to hit that. All right, let us leave that. So we're going to go now live. So this is the website that we had on the first slide, and I will show you it again at the last slide, and I think it probably will come in like an email to you as well. But it's just teachtci.com, and then it's just bring-distance-learning-alive with TCI. So we'll send you that link, and it'll also be in the presentation. And Kelsey, you might want to just throw it in the chat as well, just so they have that website. So you can explore this on your own. There's tons of great resources on here, but the one that I wanted to make sure that we point out immediately, there's a good blog entry called Top 5 Ways to Use, have students use TCI at home. So I'm not going to read through the blog. I'm just going to show you these top 5 ways, but you have this to fall back on if you want to look at it afterwards. So the program that I'm in right now is called Planet Earth. So again, it's a modular program. So these same units, if you're using the California Integrated, will also be in California Integrated. So like this unit on Earth Systems will be either in this Planet Earth module, or it'll also be in the California Integrated. So this layout should be the same for all middle school teachers, even if you're using a physical science or a life science program. Okay. So first item that is very easy to share with students is if you look on the left side of the purple sidebar, the one that says text with notes, that's probably the quickest and most easily shared. So if you click text with notes, this is all of the text, and some of you may have print textbooks and others may just be using online, but this lets students access all of the text immediately. So that's probably the easiest thing to share, to have a good basis for your students on all the content that they're looking at. And we can pause for a second to see if anyone has questions on these. I think most of you guys are current users, so you've probably seen all these tools about how you can change your reading level. They can have the text played to them. They can switch to Spanish. They can click main ideas to see the key ideas. They can highlight. But if anyone has any questions about the pieces of the text, kind of like what are the aspects that students can use here, go ahead and throw that in the Q&A and we'll look at that in a second. Other things I just wanted to point out is if you haven't had students, the students probably discovered it on their own even if you haven't, but like just, they can click on any of the images and blow them up and zoom in on the image. So if students haven't tried that, that's one thing you might want to suggest with students. It's also helpful if you're doing like a screencast or if you're doing a live webinar session with your students to be able to zoom in on those images that are there. You also have in the vocab, this was just recently added, this box here. So this matches the print now, and it will jump you straight to the vocab cards or to the glossary. So this will be the same thing that matches the print textbook if they have that at home. And if they don't have it at home, they can just jump straight here to the online text.
And Nathan, while you're on this page real quick, can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
We had a question about if students are having an issue with internet access, just sharing, like, could they get a PDF of this text? So
Yeah.
I'm just really highlighting that, showing that real quick again.
Okay, so there's two options for that. So the print button will generate a PDF of the text. So if that way you could download it and you could either email it to students or they could at least just download it when they do have internet access and then save it. So that's one option, is creating the PDF using the print text button. The other option is sending it straight to Google Drive. So they can download here and save it straight to the Drive. And then Drive has options that could be offline as well. So they can set up offline in the Drive itself. So that's helpful pieces for print text and Google Drive. And actually both those were, kind of added in the last year, and we've had a lot of good feedback on those. Any other questions on the text? Good question on I think the PDF is literally just the text. It doesn't have the ISN questions, right?
Right. This PDF is just the text, although we could show them where they could find the PDF in the materials tab of the questions, but this particular PDF, right, would just be the text.
Yeah. So this button here will get you the text. Sorry, somebody asked, like, can students also see the ISN, the notebook questions at the same time? So the way that you would see the notebook, like a print version of the notebook, is you go to materials. So I'm going to click on the materials over here on the sidebar. And then that gives me, for that same lesson, any of the PDFs that go with that lesson. So you want the interactive student notebook. That will be the print version of the online questions. So if you want to send the PDF to students or put this in their Drive or have them mark it up on Notability or using another app, then that's the way to have the default print one. And all of those questions, remember all these questions are also online. So you can either have an option of the print or the online for those. All right, so let me go back to the text here. So any other questions about the online text, or Kelsey, anything that I'm missing on like ways to use the online text? I think you might, we have lots of videos that kind of show students how to do everything. So don't feel like you have to make it yourself. So if you want to show students how to use the highlighting feature, then we have like a little video that will show them kind of the features of how to use it. You could create your own Screencastify, but just, I wouldn't don't reinvent the wheel. Like for most of the features and most of like the how-tos, just shoot us an email, just send it to info@teachtci. And then we may already have something created that you could use. And then there are lots and lots of resources, again, back here on this page that we'll send you that have, how do you use TCI remotely? And so like, these are some of the videos that we've built in, like how do I share slides and what do the students see? So we've done a lot of that. All right, so the first thing is text. So that's the easiest thing to assign, and Kelsey will show you in just a second how you assign the text if you want to assign the text. The second thing that is the easiest to use with students are the notes that are right underneath the text. So this is the introduction, so there are no notes below it. If I hit next section on the bottom right corner, that takes me to section 1. And then as I scroll down, these are the notebook prompts that we just showed you in the materials tab. So then students can type here and can send their answers that way. One note is, see that I have this show answer key button. If you did an orientation, right, this is only for the teacher. So the students don't have this orange button, obviously. But this is helpful for you if you're teaching and need to see the answers right there. All right, so the notes are probably the second thing. The third thing that is great to use with students at home is the lesson game. So text with notes is in the purple sidebar here, and then right below it is the lesson game. And if you click lesson game, that will show you there's a variety of different lesson games. This is one where you're trying to grow the plant along the side. And so they'll answer the questions, and then I still failed. Okay, so my plant did not grow, but like eventually if I get a question right, then my plant will start to grow. So these are lots of ways that you could use the lesson game. Right now, the lesson games, and again, Kelsey will show you in the settings how we can change this, but right now the lesson games are open to all students, so they could just take it right now. But then you have to choose whether you want students to be able to like take it as many times as they want or not. So we'll show you that in the settings in a second. But a couple ways you could use these. Some teachers like to use them as a pre-test and a post-test. Others like to just leave it totally open and just have students take it whenever they want to. There's kind of lots of, kind of options for how you want to use this. And then all of the data is tracked and sent back to you on your teacher side. So that's one of the nice things about the lesson game. All right, and then final things, there's a vocab card. So just going down this sidebar still, text, lesson game, vocab card. So students can use the vocab cards very easily from distance learning. And then there are assessments that you can assign online, and students can take all the assessments online. So those are kind of like the top 5 initial ways that you would use TCI. And what Kelsey's going to show you is how you assign each of these pieces. How do you assign the text with note, lesson game, and assessments? But I want to stop there and just see what other questions you guys have, or if there's any thoughts about any of those elements. So text with notes or lesson game. And Amy, we will definitely do how do you grade by question. Yes, that's something that came out recently. And actually the grading tool itself has been improved. So we'll do that in just a second. Yeah.
Awesome.
And
all right.
Amy, you might want to throw that in the Q&A just so we make sure not to miss it, but I think we should be okay. All right, so can you share, or do I need to stop sharing?
You need to stop sharing.
Okay.
Glorious. All right. I am going to walk you through, let me close this out so you guys can see. Nathan, can you see that okay? I'm on planet Earth over here.
Yep, you look good.
Awesome.
Or the screen looks good. I mean, you look fine too.
I mean, that was kind of rude, but that's all right. I will blow past it. All right. So assignments, that's, I think, a big question, right? And actually I saw that come up a couple times in the Q&A. And Nathan has just been showing you along the sidebar right here as we're working. And I'm in my teacher subscription now. I am going to do really the same thing. So I'm going to go up here to where I see assignments. I'm going to go to create new, and you have to make sure. And if most of you have been using TCI, then you know, you have to have your students loaded up in here to be able to do that. But I can go in here and let's just start with lesson 1 for the sake of today, energy and earth systems. And I can see here, I have a lot of different options in terms of what I may want to assign to students. Now, I know there was a question in the Q&A, can I assign a specific question? At this point, no, what you can assign to them is the notebook, your text with notes, and then you can even kind of drill down and decide, do I want to assign a certain section to them? And then also the lesson game. So for the sake of today, I am going to assign all of these things to my students. This actually process that we're going through right here would be the same that we would do for an assessment if that is something that we wanted to do. Although right now we're gonna look at this assignments page. I can go in here, if I had multiple classes, I could maybe assign it to just one or even a subgroup of students. So these are my fake students that I have in here. I'm gonna assign it to all of these kids. I want it to be available immediately. You select your due date for that. Let's just say it's today. And then you have this set on here and you assign it to them. And you can very clearly see here, as I'm looking at this page, I have assigned this. And I actually want to show you for a moment. I'm going to go over here to my student subscription and show you that if I'm logged in as a student, I can go in here and I can see, oh, this is what my teacher assigned to me here. Just as on the teacher end, I was able to see it. My students are able to see exactly what I gave to them with my very clear due date here available for me as well. Nathan, thoughts about assignments that we're missing here?
Yes. So the couple of questions were about assigning individual questions. So like you saw that whole list that Kelsey had because she's assign happy, but like say she only assigned just section 2, then that's all they would see would just be section 2 would be their only assignment that's there. So like you could, and so each of those sections isn't going to have very many questions in it. So that is really a way to like just shrink down the amount that you're assigning at one time.
Totally.
And then another question that we had is about how do you let students only see the section that you assigned or the chapter that you assigned? And that is actually over in settings. Yeah. And I was going to show that, but go ahead. That'd be easier.
Why don't we just do it right now? Exactly.
Yeah. So that key there, student view and features, that's probably the main, if there's anything you play with that in grades in your settings to see how you would want to set up your classroom. So look at that top group there.
Right, so we've got your investigation notebook, your text notes, and your lesson game. Right now, and actually by default, your students are gonna have access to everything, right? They're going to be able to see that there. They are going to be able to access it at any time. If I were to turn these things off for my students, the only way that they would be able to have access to them is if I assigned it to them, right? So that essentially will lock them out of any text that I don't necessarily want them in. My one caveat would be that as you're in this settings page, make sure whatever you click on or off, you click update at the bottom, because that will then enable that feature. And you can always go back in and change these settings. Even within an hour, you can go back in and change them and update them, as long as you press that purple update button here at the bottom. Those will be set for you.
Yeah, so you really are I mean, like what Kelsey has set right now, like she's locked everything down. Like,
right.
So right now, basically students are not gonna see the text, they're not gonna see the lesson game, they're not gonna see the notebook. So it's only when she does an assignment would they then see section 2, or they would see the lesson game. So that could be a good option now for distance learning. The reason we don't do that is because so if you ever have a student be like, I can't see anything, that's probably what you did. You probably changed the setting and didn't come back to it. But definitely test out both those and see what works best with your students.
Totally. And while we're here, Nathan, since this was the next thing, do we just want to continue talking through the settings a little bit?
Yeah, just stay on this one. The other, like all the bottom settings, that's really more for differentiation. You know, so if you wanted like all those text features that are on the text, like do you want students to be able to have the text read to them? Do you want them to see it in Spanish? Do you want them to be able to use the main ideas? So right now, Kelsey's students cannot see the main ideas because she has main ideas turned off. But they can see they can have the text read to them. They can see it in Spanish. So like those are settings just to make sure if you want to differentiate and only have certain students use those text features, then you can do that. And like what she's scrolling over right now, the edit per student, that is if you want to do it literally student by student, you can control that. The only one that's not on there yet, but is coming, is the reading levels. So we do have like reading level A, which is kind of on level, and reading level B is 25% lower Lexile. So that's the only one that we don't have it set by student yet, but that is still coming. And that's just because that feature just came out last 3 months. And then the last one there, right where her cursor is, restart lesson games.
Yep.
So restart lesson games, that's if you want students to be able to take it as many times as they want on their own. And then it's only going to show you the latest scores that they took it. But if you just want it to be more of like a free-for-all where they're testing out the lesson game, then they can just try that on their own.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Nathan, I'm going to stop sharing so you can grab it back.
Okay, yeah. And so Amy, hopefully that answered your question. So definitely if you lock down those settings, that is going to not let them see the other sections. The only other thing I think on the text that we need to look at is Google Classroom. So I'll share back here. So note that there are a couple places that you'll see the little green Google Classroom icon. So that means if I want to share this particular section to students, then I can do that. So I could say I want to go to section 3, and then you can click share to Google Classroom. You can also, let's see, so I think I've got a class set up here. Best period, yeah. So you create an assignment, go. So now I can type whatever I want. And then this is going to send students to this particular link. So when they click on here, then it goes straight to this section, section 3. So the only caveat is they do need to be signed in, or it'll ask them to sign in. So, but at least it kind of gets rid of that, like, where do you go thing. So that's one option, is to be able to have them go straight to the to Google Classroom there. What else am I missing on Google Classroom, Kelsey?
I think that was the big question for that, was how do you kind of assign and use that through there? There was a question about, is that same link, or is that same linking ability possible with the slideshows, with our lesson guides?
So not right now, and we'll show you the lesson guides in a second, but yeah, not right now through Google Classroom.
But the sharing ability is something that we can do now in the subscription, which is pretty cool, which is a brand new feature for us.
Yeah. So any other text questions on my mind? Because we're going to go look at sharing slides next. Kathy asked a question about reading comprehension questions for the Reading Further articles. So I don't know if you guys have found these, but at the end of, not every single chapter has one, but at the end of a lot of chapters, there'll be a Reading Further. And these are just really neat. I mean, they have all kinds of cool phenomena that they talk about, and like just kind of good nonfiction text. Right now, there are not additional notebook questions for the reading furthers. If that's something that you'd be interested in, then please do send that into TCI. Most of you probably know how to do that, but you just go to your name and then hit help. And then there's a purple button, product feedback. And so please do use this liberally and send in any product feedback that you have. You literally just put your name, district, subject, and then the description. So if it's something, like if it's a broad idea, like I'd like to see notebook questions for the reading furthers, then just type it in here. If it's a specific question, like I don't get what the directions are on slide 12, then please do tell us what program you're in and what lesson you're in so that we can find where that slide is. But it's totally fine to send both types of feedback to us. Specific things like where's this handout, where's whatever, any little issue that you have, and then also bigger picture. This is how we got most of the features that we're showing you right now. So like the highlighting came out, a couple months ago because we had enough teachers put in highlighting. So we just cannot reinforce enough to like we really do want to hear from you guys. And like our software team right now is in the process of reprioritizing everything to do what you guys need the most for distance learning. So that's what, so this is a like kind of a very powerful time where you can send in lots of information or lots of your feedback, and our software team is going to try to react as quickly as they can. Okay? So did want to just emphasize that. Again, you go to your name, click help, and then you'll pop up and you'll see that purple button to send items in.
Awesome. And I will tell you, Nathan, one of our esteemed colleagues, Brian Thomas, did send us a message in our chat that said if you right click on the lesson guide, then you can post that as a link.
Yes. Okay. So let's go to sharing right now. Do you see any other questions on text?
I know. I think we are okay on that right now.
Okay. All right. So for the lesson guide, let me close out some of this. I've started to get a little crazy.
It looks like my computer normally.
Yeah, very quickly the tabs
75
add up.
tabs. Yeah, totally.
So when you're in a lesson, one feature that just came out very recently, and we had our software team, they really released it earlier than they wanted to, which is why it says beta on it. But we knew it was really important for distance learning. So what this lets you do is you can now share your complete lesson guide slides with students. And so that's this little forward arrow. And I just did the sharing, which is why it's purple. If I hadn't shared yet, then I'd have this like gray arrow that says share with students. And right now, you can have two options for sharing. You can either share the complete lesson guide, or you can open it up and make your own copy and then share that lesson guide that you make a copy of. So I just opened up the lesson guide and say I, change something on here. Say I edit this text and I just, changing. Here we go. So that's changing. And then if I leave this one, or say let's do another, like let's hide a slide here. So if I hide this slide, then from here you can save this copy, and then that will force you to say another name. So you might say this is my distance version. Okay. And once that pops up in your lesson guides, you can now share this presentation. So you can just share it immediately, or you can edit and then share. That's kind of the two options for it. And if you haven't ever edited before, a lot of teachers have only just used what's there. So if you haven't edited, there's a little note here that says save successful, presentation card added on the lesson guide page. So the green, that's supposed to be like, okay, good, everything's good. I click lesson guides and I'll now see, you can't mess up our original, right? The original complete lesson guide is still there. And then I scroll down and I see now this new distance one that I added, and then I can share that distance one. And when you're sharing it, you literally just hit the button, share. It says, do you want to share? Yes, that's why I'm here. And now I've shared the slides. And the way I can tell is that the purple button says that I've shared the slides now. Okay. So any initial questions on that? And then what I want to do is pull over another screen that shows the student side of it so that you can see what the students would actually see and what they would see in the slideshow. And I think actually that's what a couple people have just put in. So let's do that.
I was going to say that's perfect. Why don't we show them right now?
Dragging over this, that's why it's black at the top. So this is an incognito. So this is just the student version. So this is the smaller sidebar. So now we're looking at the student side. And on the student side, there's a new lesson slides piece. So I click lesson slides, and this will have any shared lesson slides. Now, lesson 6, it says I have not shared anything. So you might kind of give students a head up for that. Like if you've only shared certain lessons, only certain ones will be there. So I think I just shared lesson 1, right? Yes, so here are the lesson one ones, and I shared both of these. So I shared the complete lesson guide and I shared my modified one. So you can share multiple versions of the lesson guides, and then students will be able to see these here. One thing that I want to have you compare real quick is when I'm gonna open up the complete lesson guide on the student side. So I'm in the, oh, sorry, I need to click here. So I'm on the student side, and when the lesson guide opens, there's going to be one major difference from yours and the student one. So here is the student one. Notice that they have the exact same slide. They have the exact same video that you would have in your lesson guide slides. And then they have these green buttons. So the connections to your life buttons will still be there. And there's a suggested reading button will still be there. And the other one that you'll see a lot is the green notebook button. So we'll talk about that in a second. But if you, just in case you haven't used TCI's lesson guides a lot more, the ones that are missing are the orange buttons. So this should hopefully make you feel a little better. So like all this stuff, like teacher prep and, you know, lesson support, like, you know, have students do this and this. So like, so students will not see these orange buttons that are meant for you. Okay? So that's the only difference. Everything else should be exactly the same. So again, they'll see the green button, they won't see the orange button. So orange means teacher only, green means that the students can see it. And there's a lot of cool things then once you share the slides with students. So even though they, I mean, obviously it's some of the, you know, full investigations will be tough to do. I'm in investigation 1, what are Earth systems? And then they can just click through. Again, they can hit the space bar, they can hit right arrow, they can use these arrows down here. So they can click through and then they can, you know, do all these same pieces. So it's saying, what components do we see? And then they can click the plus and minus buttons. They can click the connections to your life button. So there's a lot of things that they still have access to in the lesson guides. And this is where you might want to get a little creative with, you know, say I share this first investigation, like, do I want to have students then respond to me by, you know, on Google Classroom, or do they create, like, do they have like a Google Doc going, or do they have some other system that you want to have them, you know, just not click through, but take a little time to write answers down. Okay? So that's one suggestion. So just make sure, you know, like there is a video again that we created for students. It's like a 4 or 5 minute video that explains kind of this exact same stuff that we're going over right now. So we can share that, or you can, it's on that main website, but you can also just email us to get it. So it'll walk through students through what they can do. It'll, you know, point out, you can play these videos. It'll point out they can use the plus minus button. So these are kind of suggestions, and these are ones that help you drive the lesson typically, but they can also help students learn the content on their own as they're going through. So that's, you know, it's kind of similar to kind of doing it lecture style as they're going through. A couple other things we definitely want to point out is when you see this green notebook button, so this is the place where students would answer our official notebook questions. Okay, so I'm going to click on green notebook, and then it says, you know, what do I think is happening here? So they would write their answer of what they think is happening. And so as they're answering here, it's also answering it in their notebook. So instead of having to go back and forth between their notebook, they can literally directly answer in this button, and they don't have to have their notebook open in a separate tab or open a separate screen. So there's kind of 2 ways to do it. Either you can have them do it totally digital, like they click the notebook, or if you feel like that's just too much online, like then you could always send students that PDF that we showed you from the materials. And so if you send them that PDF, they could be working on the PDF while they're going through the slides here. So really you can do it pure digital, or you know, kind of have them send the print version, they could do that too. Anything else here? So, I mean, just even all these, like all these little drag and drops will work. You know, you could even have students do like a little screencast where they're showing you for 10 seconds, them doing this, or they take a screenshot of this photo to show if they're actually, like, you know, what they've actually been able to accomplish here. So there's, I think, a lot of ways that they can use these different elements as they're going through. Oh, good. I failed already. Yes, good. Okay. Right. And then one I do definitely want to point out is when they get to the end of each investigation. So there's always the wrap-up slide at the end of the investigation. And this has kind of the key questions. Like when I'm teaching it in class, I oftentimes use this as like an exit ticket. So like I'll have them all write down as an exit ticket. So this is a good idea to have students like respond maybe on like where they're like talking to each other on a message board, or where they just have to email you their answers to the. And like we have like just an initial answer here, but I mean, obviously it'll be pretty obvious if they just copy the initial answer that's right there. And you could also, if you want to edit these, you could edit out and just delete that answer so that they're not able to see the answer and they have to like then send you the answer. Then the other important part of this slide on every wrap-up slide at the end of the investigation is the suggested reading button. So when you click suggested reading, that says, okay, I just did this investigation, and now what's the part that I should read next? And so these are at point of use. as to when you would read. And so they click section 2, and that'll take them to the reading for section 2 that goes with that investigation. So this is really a much more advanced way to use TCI and to you know, for distance learning. Like, you could have just assigned this text, like that's kind of your bare minimum basic, so that everybody has at least the same level where they're getting the kind of the core concepts. But it just is going to be a lot cooler if you can have them look at the other images and look at the other visuals that are in the slideshow and use those at home. All right, questions so far about lesson guides or sharing?
I think, Nathan, one of the questions, just looking at this one from Michelle right here, just again, if you go back to the
so Michelle has a good
page.
question about how do I, let me go back to the teacher side. So close this. So now we're back on the teacher side. Yep. And the purple button is really the key. Yep. So I have shared that one and I can unshare it. So if I click it, then it unshares. Are you sure you want to unshare it? There's kind of always a, be careful. So now I've unshared that slide, and the purple one here, or the distance one, is the one I've shared. So whatever's purple is what you've actually shared. That's how you can tell.
Highlighted like that. Yep.
Yep. And what is coming still in the pipeline, because this is beta, right now you can only share complete lesson guides or your edited lesson guide. We're going to try to do it where we can shortcut it, so that if you just want to share investigation 1, but you don't want to spend a lot of time editing, like you could just hit share right here. But remember, there's kind of an easy way to do that anyway. Like, you can just click into this one investigation. So if you only want to share investigation 1, instead of hiding all the other ones, just open only investigation 1. So now I only have these 8 slides. And then I can share this one. So once you've edited something and you save it, then you can share this one instead.
Awesome.
All right, other questions?
Just a question about that wrap-up slide. Can students see the wrap-up answers when the slide is shared?
So they could right now, literally anything that's in there, they could see. But let me go into, let's see. What if I wanted to test this out actually. I'm assuming you could just edit the text and delete that answer. So I just deleted that.
Trying things out live.
I could save. Yeah. Oh yeah. We're learning to as you go. So it's just like all the rest of the slides. So you can edit that out. So if you just want to get rid of that answer, you could do that, or it could be like email this to me, or whatever direction you want, like just so they know exactly what they're supposed to do there. Yeah.
Totally.
Cool. Anything else you see that we missed, Kelsey, on kind of sharing?
I see Sandra's got something in the chat where she just said, can only the beta slides be shared, or is this done with all of the lessons?
So yeah, any of the complete lesson. What's actually saying it's beta is the feature. So when you scroll over, it says sharing as a feature is beta. And there are some investigations that actually have beta versions of them, like in Matter. I don't think there's one in Planet Earth here, but like in Matter, there are some places that we've added beta investigations. You could still share those as well. Yeah. So you can share it. You should be able to share any of the lessons that are in there.
Yeah. And Nathan, this isn't specifically related to lesson guides, but while we're on this page and we can see the sidebar, one of the questions that's consistently come up today is just how do we know what our students can see? And so I wanted to talk about kind of an upcoming feature, but currently, if they're just looking at the sidebar, how do they see what students see?
So there's a couple like kind of key elements. So one is any of these green dots are a page that students have. So see how there's no green dot here? So like students do not have like a lesson guide page by itself until you share the slides, right? So that's kind of your heads up. Like they don't have this materials page, but they do have a notebook. So if you click on a green dot one, like the notebook, then this is literally the exact same page that students would see. And then if you open it up, that's the same thing they're seeing. Now notice the orange again. So like, just like in the slides, the orange buttons are the ones they don't see. If I click on show answer key, it says not visible to students. So that's our color coding, but we usually just write it out too. So like, that's the difference, is the orange stuff is not visible to students. So like, that's a notebook example. Say back here, like on this unit overview, again, because it has a green dot, that means students can also see this exact same page, except they cannot see this box, not visible to students, right? So that orange box is what students don't have on their page, but they would see all the rest of those pieces right there. So that's how we have it built right now, so that you can kind of get a very good sense of what students have there. we are actually developing a feature. Kelsey, you may have said this already. Like we are developing a feature to actually have you like switch to flat out student view. So you could literally be like, I want to see exactly what my student's seeing and not be navigating in the teacher one, because it can get a little confusing because you're looking at the orange boxes. So we're in the process of making that really easy. If you want to see the student one, you can do what I just did. So I mean, I just went into my classes, and then if you have access to any of your students' information or logins, then you could use one of them, or you could make a fake student. So if I do manage students, I just added this fake kid. And then that's how I signed in on this other browser. So I just used my, used an incognito browser, or just use a different style. So do Chrome and Firefox. And then that's how I could sign in and see exactly what the student was seeing. So this is the student version of the lesson here. So that's kind of an annoying workaround right now, but like that's how you can do it today. And then I think it's only a couple weeks that we should have it out where you can have like a student view and easily be able to see what students have.
Totally. Which is exciting. I mean, I think that's one of those things that teachers have been asking for. And so yeah. I think that's what's exciting about this time is there's so many new things that we're rolling out. And so we're so grateful for that feedback that you provided. And if you've seen in the chat section or the question answer section, if you asked a question and right now the answer is we don't have that, I will tell you, tell us, let us know if there's something that you're seeing or that you're wanting, because that is one of the many awesome things about TCI is that we listen to what you say and your feedback, as Nathan already shared. That helps drive what we do as a company. So thank you for that.
And especially if it's distance related, I think that's even more important. So, I mean, like we've actually, a lot of us have been asking for the sharing slides ability for a while, and because you really need it distance wise, like that came out fast. So, totally. It's fine to be a little dramatic in your feedback and be like, oh, I have to have this in order for this to work distance wise. And then that'll convince our software people to do it.
Awesome. Nathan, what I will tell you so far, we are caught up on questions. So.
Well, we want to show you one last piece, and this is like, it's a little rough because we're just starting to do this right now, but we're going to keep improving it. But at the top, like when you're in any lesson, so I'm in lesson 1 right now, so you just pick a lesson. Along this top bar in your teacher subscription, there's a distance learning tips. So this gives suggestions for this particular lesson. So it's saying like in this lesson, investigation 1 is a good one that I could do because it's video based. They can identify the components. So that's a good one to fight. Investigation 2 might be a little tough because there's many unique materials needed for it. So it might be too tough to do at home, but I would still look at those to see if there's a way around it. One thing that I noticed even in investigation 2 is like having them physically do the investigation, the experiment where they like heat the water might be a little rough at home. So I probably wouldn't suggest students do that, but there's a video that we have built in that shows it. So I think a lot of times we've already tried to include those videos. And if there's other places that it would help for us to have a video like that so that they can see, so students can see the experiment, then please do let us know that. The other thing that we wanted to suggest is, I mean, there's no harm like kind of making your own, like, little home video versions of some of the experiments. Like if you have a classic thing that you like to do and it always is really powerful with students, then I mean, do a 5-minute screencast of it and send it to students. But we are also trying to build in more of those videos for your support for the hands-on parts, because obviously that's still important if we can do it. So that's always going to be at the top where it says distance learning tips. And then the other place for a lot of good distance learning tips are to go to the key program. Program content. So just like the main page that you sign in. And so the first page that you see when you sign in will be this one. And there's this distance learning support up here. And I can't really make it too much bigger, but this will have, suggestions that you can use. It has the resources page that I showed you earlier, how to get to our help center immediately, and then other different resources that you can use. And definitely if you've not seen the Facebook support group for distance learning, that is actually getting very, very popular, and teachers are doing an awesome job sharing other ideas with each other as to what they're doing, and then also giving us feedback for other ideas that they have. Those are the keys for in middle school science for using distance learning, and then also like for the individual lessons. Kelsey, one thing I realized we didn't show was grading, but I think that might be okay.
Yeah, no, I love, one of the other reasons, Nathan, that I love working with TCI is we have so many awesome people on our staff. And we have another person on our staff who's commented, because one of the questions was asked quite a few times in our question answer in our chat feature was those customized slideshows, could we share them amongst teacher to teacher? And Christy Sanders, one of our coworkers, said that you actually can do that, even though I've been telling people you cannot do that. Guess what? You can. So she shared that, and I thought that would be something, since we've had quite a few people ask about that. It sounds like if you copy the URL of your custom slideshow and share that with another teacher and they're logged into the same program, they'll be able to see it in present mode. So I just wanted to share that since she shared that with me.
Yeah, so the formal way of sharing with students is with the share button.
Yep.
And then we are hoping to add where you can like formally share in our system. You know how because you can share assessments right now. So if you make a separate assessment, you can share that with other teachers. We are hoping to do that same kind of thing with the lesson guides where you can share with each other. But how you would do that, just as a quick sample, is like, this is like the complete lesson guide and there's just the URL at the top. So if I copy and paste that and send that URL to a teacher, then they should be able to get into that shared version that you created. Yeah, so that's pretty nifty. Okay.
Totally. Christy.
All right, if there's no other lesson guide questions, then I want to look at grading.
Yes. Amy says she'd like to see that.
Oh, good, good. Okay, so when you're in, like, the keyword is grades, which is pretty logical. So like if you go to grades, then you can see all of your students. So I'll have my exciting one-person class here. And so from here, you can then click view grade to see the student's notebook answers. And so right now I can see, oh, the kid, I did not answer. There's this red no answers provided, means that there wasn't an answer provided that was right there. And then if I scroll a little further, I can see, this blue one, it was answered. So this is fake kid's answer. So you're looking for the blues to grade, and the red means that they're not done with it yet. And so that would be true for any of the students. So right now I'm grading by student. And then a question that we had earlier was, how do you grade by question? So instead of grading by student, I can change it to question. So I'm up here at the top, grade by question. And then you choose which question you want to see the answer to. So it could be, which one did I actually answer? Not that one.
And I wish I could tell you, but I wasn't paying attention.
I forgot it. Well, here's my one I did not answer. But the benefit here is, like, then I'll just see the answer key and then just every kid's answer right in a row. So this is your shortcut, is grade by question. And then it just has just all those in a row. And then this is nice here. You can go back and forth between the previous question or the next question. And we are definitely in the process, like, of improving, like this red box, like it used to be gray and you couldn't see it. Like, so like just improving the way that the grading works. So please do send in any tips about things that have worked or not worked for you for grading, if there's other things that we could do to make it more obvious. We had teachers also ask about, like, just hiding the answer key here so that you can just, there's less real estate. Didn't somebody I think somebody on Facebook just put in that, like it was like 30 minutes less of grading just from these little small changes, just because, like, just scrolling down was a lot less. And Stephanie, that is the question that we all want, is like, so Stephanie asks us, can you figure out a way to give points to individual questions? Please, 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 please put that online, because we all want that. Right now, it's just one notebook score for the whole notebook, but we are working on different ways to either grade by section or grade by individual question, so you could assign those. You can change the total. Like, you can say, I want the notebook out of 100 or out of 5 points or out of 2 points. You can change that in your settings, but right now you can't grade individual questions. So sorry, that's annoying. And yes, Danny, Sarah will probably answer you, but we are definitely going to send a link to this webinar afterwards.
Perfect.
Susan did ask, how do you change the points assigned? So I just want to show you that real quick. So it's in settings. It's pretty easy, but if you go to settings, this is where we were before with the student views and features. So this is like turning on and off features. And then if you go to grades, that lets you say, I want to say how much is the notebook worth for the notes. So you can adjust the notebook points here. I would also love it if someone would put in a 0 option. We have had a couple teachers ask that too. So if that's something that would help, that you don't want any points for it, that's an option. This is also a nifty place if you want to lock down the subscription during an assessment. So you can turn off open book test. That means that students, when you've assigned a test or an assessment, they can't get to any parts on our website. We can't lock down your entire browser. Like, you'd have to have others, there's other software that can do that, or like Google Classroom can do that, because they can Chrome can lock down, Google can lock down their own Chrome because it's their browser. So we can't do that because it's not our browser. but you can at least keep them off of our website for it. You can also turn off that they see assessment results immediately. So that's nice. A lot of teachers like that, but you can turn it off if you don't want them to see that. All right. Yeah, and Cheryl, same thing. Cheryl asked about like doing percentages. So like just kind of any other suggestions for these, like do please put those in to help, because that like right now this is our only default, is just choosing the numbers in there for the notebook. Yeah.
Awesome.
There is a question from Michelle, which is a good question, about co-teachers. So Michelle, the whole key for co-teachers is whether or not your district has rostered. So if they have already, like if you guys are all in using Clever or using some other system and like your students are automatically in, then you probably can't use our workaround. If you're like at a private school, you might be able to do this where you can actually just add teachers directly to your class. So there is a manage teachers option, and you could add teachers that are in your district to your class. So if it is not rostered, you can do this. The downside is I could do this today, like I can add Alex today, but if I am rostered, so if all your students are rostered and it changes nightly, in the nightly sync, it'll probably override it. And so Alex will get kicked out of my class and will not be co-sharing anymore. So if you just need like, I need to give them access right now to grade, then this is great. Just go to classes and then choose actions and then manage teacher. That lets you add a co-teacher. But if you're rostered, you do need to really go through your IT guys. So go ask your tech department and just say, hey, we need to make sure that our co-teacher gets into the rostering so that she can grade and she can see everything.
Yes, I think that's good. The last question I see on here, Nathan, is from Sandra, talking about going back to that assignments page. And if you assign just one section of the text, is there a way to only see that section instead of scrolling through the other sections?
Do I know the answer to that?
I don't. Well, as you assign that to them,
yeah,
and we can troubleshoot this live. The other suggestion I'd have, and we talked about this in the settings page, right, is if you're not going to assign something to students and you're just going to leave it where you have it, the open book for them, right? Then you could just direct students to a particular section for them. Are you going into
so say I just assigned this section. So I just have section 1 assigned. Yeah. I am not sure in grades how that works. Like I don't think it hides the other sections, right? So you could, what I would do is to just see that section, just grade by question.
Yep.
And then you should be able to jump straight to, which section you want to go to. So if you want to go to section 4, so that should let you jump down pretty far so that it should make it faster to grade.
Totally.
But I know I have heard other teachers ask for grading by section itself. So that would be a good thing to put in help, because I know that's on our software team's radar. I don't know if it's they're actually doing it right now or if it's just something that they're looking out to. So grading by section would be another option. So student question, that might be nice to add by section too. Yeah, that would make it faster.
Totally. I think that's key to be able to know how to do that. And we definitely hear you when you say grade by question. So like Nathan said, keep that feedback coming in.
Okay. Yeah. And so it's definitely verified too. So in the grade section, it's not going to highlight, it's not going to hide the other sections. You'll still have access to them. But remember that you can lock it down. So if you have it where they can't see the text, and you've turned that off in settings. So if in settings you went here to student features and you turned off the text with notes, then they could only see that section that you assign if you have it turned off. If you don't have it turned off, then the assignments are kind of more suggestions. So it's just like, make sure you do this, but you didn't want to, you didn't want to lock the whole thing down. And yeah, when grading, you can add comments. Claire just asked a question about how I add comments. So let me just show you that with this one. So you have, am I crazy?
I know. Right here.
Oh, here, add comment. It moved. Okay. I swear. Yeah. So now there's an add comment button. So if you want to add a comment, I think actually the reason it used to be a box that was right there, but we had teachers say it was kind of annoying because it added scrolling to it. So now you click add comment, and then here's where you would say, what a brilliant job that you did. And then that shows up. You can see it saved at 12:56 or 10:56. And then that's going to be then sent to the student so they can see it on their side.
Totally.
And yeah, and students can see the teacher comments after you grade. If you add the comments in there, they can see them on their side. Yep.
Absolutely. If they ever say to you, like, you commented to them, they're like, I can't see it, have them refresh their page.
Yeah, refreshing page could be the issue. Yep.
Yep. And Claire was just asking, where do they see the comments? When they're in their notebook.
Yeah, it would just be back on their notebook. So I'm switching to the black screen again. So I'm now on the student side. So investigation notebook on the student side. Where did I comment here? Which one did I comment on? Ah, here we go. So this is my comment. It's in this, exciting gray box here. So that's the teacher comment on the student side.
Yep.
Okay. So it's pretty obvious.
Awesome.
All right. So, and then Susan asked about creating a fake student. So again, this only works, and sorry for all the caveats, but like if you have rostering, that like rostering is kind of, it's both great because it's all done for you, but then it does kind of lock things down. So creating a fake student, you would just go to my classes and where you'd see your students, and then you can always just add a student. If you do manage students, then you can add a student and just make your own student up. So that's how I added fake kid, was I just typed in these pieces right here. The caveat is if you're rostered, the kid will probably disappear tonight. Because most districts, when they have their sync set up, like it just checks to see your learning management system and then your attendance, and they all talk to each other, and it'll resync it back out. So just kind of know that it's great. It's easy to play with it right here. It takes 2 seconds to put a fake name in here, and then you just go sign in at teachtci.com and do student sign in, and you can sign in. But hopefully this will, again, only be about 2 more weeks before we'll have it where you can actually see on your own end, and you can see that student view. So this is really just a workaround just for a couple weeks.
Yep. Absolutely.
Kelsey, any advice for the grading in the notebook on like number of points given? I mean, I set my points at 100 just because it made more sense to me. And I kind of did it more as a completion grade for the whole notebook. So I would add comments and then I would just do it at 100. I forget what the default even is for the,
I know. I want to say the default is 10, although I could be wrong on that. I mean, just in terms of, I think Nathan is right. You picking the setting. For my kids, when I would do it, I would have it usually be 10 points for each section, right? And so I'd kind of go through and look at it that way. But I think they are, it really depends on your style and the way that you set it up. But there is some of that flexibility in there for you to set it up how it is best.
Okay. And Stephanie says it's 5. It's a good thing.
Oh, well, there you go.
It's a good thing she knows some answers.
Stephanie, do you want to join us on the next webinar?
Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah. So the default is 5. But yeah, I think I changed that like day 1. So then you can pick whatever amount you want there.
Absolutely.
And so Lynn then asked again about like, if you share a slideshow with students, where do they see it? So they do not see it in assignments. That's the only thing that's a little bit weird. So right now when students go to see slideshows, okay, so again, this is the student side here. They have it on the purple bar. So it says lesson slides. And I don't know, I think it's supposed to be added to assignments where you can assign, but I'm not totally sure if that's something that's changing or not. For now, they see lesson slides on the purple sidebar. And then so like for lesson 2, I haven't shared anything, it's going to give me that message that teacher hasn't shared slides with me here.
Yep. And they actually won't, until you share a slideshow with them, they won't even see that lesson slides up over there.
Yeah, it pops up when they've shared one.
Totally.
But that is interesting. Yeah, it's not also in assignments. Yeah. Part of that I think is because they did put it out earlier than they expected. But.
Totally. Well, Nathan, if you can believe it or not, we're up with time, and we have answered all of the questions that we've been given at this time.
But if there's something else, please do email us. So if there's something 100%. That we didn't answer yet, let us know. And then, yes, Sarah, somehow there's a recorded version of this webinar. That'll be posted, and then will also be sent out to you guys after as well.
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys very much. And again, just thank you for coming up with ways to get as much across to students as possible, and just give yourself some leeway.
Yeah, you guys are incredibly amazing. It's so awesome to work with teachers who genuinely care, right, about their kids, and you're killing it during this distance learning. So keep at it, and let us know if there's something we could do to support you better. You just let us know, and we'll make it happen.
All right. Awesome. Thank you guys very much.
All right. Bye. Have a great day.
See you soon.